It's my honor to invite Dr. Abdul Hussein, who is a town planner, geospatial analysis, and coordinator of MENA GCIF initiative. His bio will be posted. My good friend from MENA is also the Secretary General of the ministry. So, and we have done a lot of work, and this is one of the African champions I've seen on this issue of intermediary cities and urban rural linkages. So, and he had done a lot of work. So we'd like to hear a bit more your reflection and some of your messages we can maybe take note of as you prepare for Africities. Dr. Abdul, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well, sir.
Thank you very much. It's good to be behind so that at least you can learn from other experiences. And I think I would also like to talk directly, even though I prepared a slide. I like the passion of the last presenter. And I remember one of the Africities Summit was hosted by Casablanca. And really, I was there. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you here. What he raised fundamentally exactly is what MENA, the capital of Niger State, is serving. Interestingly, MENA is really being affected directly by what is really happening to these dominant cities like Abuja, which is very close. In fact, for the purpose of record, Remy, you are aware of the location of Suleja and Abuja, and then how MENA is. So most of the problem in Abuja, believe me, is transferred to this small city. MENA was established around 1910. By 2010, it serves 100 years. So I would like to go with that, and then to give a very small background on, maybe for the purpose of knowing, Niger State is serving, one of the largest, if having the 10% of total land area, and then it's well located centrally, and that is where MENA, being centrally located, is also, it has served as hub of rail line in Nigeria. In fact, the first locomotive that move around in Nigeria is right now in MENA. Unfortunately, most of the old histories now, they're almost gone. And that is where we need to look at what is happening at these intermediary cities. The challenge which I have noticed over the last 15, 20 years that I have served with the government is the lack of ability or weak enforcement processes in making these intermediary cities real effective. Unfortunately, if they are staying or located very close to a kind of urban, like a dominant city like Abuja, then whatever that cannot be done in Abuja will be easily done in that university. And that's why we have Suleja. All the problem, people use that as a dormitory. In the morning, they move to Abuja and do their work and they come back because there is weak enforcement, lack of resources to do the necessary planning process and implementation, and people from the major cities have the money to come to this rural area and do what we call this land grabbing. People now will turn, instead of looking at, and that's one of the challenges, which I think we need to look at the possibility, how can we bring real effective governance when it comes to land administration? People are looking at it as investment. So they will come and dispossess the local people, buy land in very big amount, and then after a period, they will now start selling. And by the end of the day, these rural people that are living in this area will be dispossessed. The implication is what? Farming activity with time will become very difficult. Most of these people are farmers because they don't have money. 1 hectare is going for 1 million naira. Just I want you to convert. Then after 10 years, the same 1 million naira that you sold your 1 hectare of land will go for 300 million naira. You don't have farm to land to farm and so on. So these are some of the challenges which the relationship between these intermediary cities, or whichever name we want to call it, is not only at that level. I like the way he really said, forget about the number. What is the population? No, where are they located? How is their relationship? How can we make it effective? By providing a very simple, easy to follow procedure that can work. So that is what really is happening. And we have looked at so many things. And like you mentioned, yes, we are part of the, should I say, we are participating in this urban linkages, Niger State. And we have seen some of the effort which really is giving a direction. For instance, one of the key takeaway from the new urban agenda is that stop talking about this urban and regional planning, urban and rural. No, how do we look at this relationship? It's a kind of continuum. because when you say rural or urban, we're trying to bring a kind of dichotomy. But we have something somewhere that is related and relevant to the other person. If you're talking about farming, even if you're doing farming 100 kilometers away from a settlement, there is a link of flow of this commodity into this area. How do you integrate that? And that is where regional development plan usually comes about. We have really been taking this for granted and trying to give this dichotomy urban plan, and then the emphasis is more on urban, without looking at rural. So when you bring rural, then you put it as if it's rural development. Then you take it geographically without looking at it's part and parcel of planning. Until we look at this relationship, and that is where the concept of territorial planning, instead of over regional planning, town planning, town country planning, all these are, trying to bring division. And somebody will go to university and will look at his field after graduating as if it's only in urban area that he can work, without knowing that he should be in fact, I used to tell my students, if they are looking for anybody for recent an advertisement, let's see World Bank looking for a sustainable development especially, and you have planning degree and you think you are not relevant, then you don't know your field. Because by your training, you are taught to look at the relationship between all the components that will make human settlement efficient, aesthetic, and also safe. Then who is that person that can work sustainably if not you? So these are some of the things, and I think we must appreciate what UN has done there. And then another initiative of UN Habitat is the overall linkages, which really brought this idea of looking at so many things, that whatever you are doing in the urban area is dependent on what is happening in the rural area, and rural area also need this. So instead of allowing this, we've been talking for a very long time, people are moving urban migration from the context of geographic analysis. But overall linkage is looking at what is the actual relationship in a manner that it shouldn't be so. You need to improve the rural area for them to be able to do what is necessary to keep the urban area alive, active, and also sufficient. I think this two innovation, which UN Habitat is really championing, I must commend you for that. So when you look at what is happening, this issue of divide between the urban and rural is really creating a lot of problem. People are moving because and when you go to you can't afford to live there, then you live on marginal areas. So instead of the overall linkage is really very so many things. When you move to urban areas, infrastructure cannot be provided. Most of the areas, like I mentioned, they are on marginal spaces. It's everywhere. You go to Kenya, we have one of the most outstanding areas that when they are taking of reference, they will mention that I've forgotten the name. In Kenya, the same thing when you come to Nigeria, you go to Lagos, you go to Abuja, and then of course you come to Mina, you have known most of these Pakunguru, Barik and Saleh, which you are very familiar with, Mr. Rini. So these are some of the challenges which are an issue. If you look at based on statistics, what is really happening for the purpose of record, Niger State, we have almost 77% rural. And then, of course, they will call us for because what is there. And let me share this important, because I think this is a very good place. We're looking at Africities coming up. Could you believe anywhere buy it? You might be buying shea butter that originates from Niger State. But where? Is in Kenya, is in Ghana, or even taken as far as Japan. And then it will be packaged without the people that are really doing this work benefiting fundamentally. And that's why you look at the percentage of people that are poor, almost 77%. 40% of the buildings in these rural areas don't have access to electricity. 29% have no sanitation facility. This is the reality. But what do we need to do to improve this? And one thing that we know, which we have seen in the what we have done, most of the shea butter trees, just on their own, they've been there for the past 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. There is not any deliberate policy. And these are some of the oversight that I think as government we need to look at. How do we sustain some of the things that we have inherited? Because somebody defines sustainable development as enough for all forever. Unfortunately, we are not looking at it for that forever. We made this shea butter trees. What are we doing as a people, as professionals, to make sure that those that are coming after us will also benefit from it? This is the problem. While literacy rate in rural areas of Niger State is at 8.5%, these are some of the issues that I think we need to look at. So this is the complex relationship between urban and rural areas in Niger State. And that is what really is the motivation behind urban rural linkages, the Niger said, and then what are the issues? If you know, of course, what are the major link between urban rural linkages as it affects sustainable development goals? Goal 11, goal 2, goal 9, goal 10. All of this, if we are able to solve this, we'll get what we are looking for. And with this solid work, like you mentioned, to look at the relationship, MENA is an intermediary city, very good one. But there are, like the last speaker mentioned, there are other smaller settlements. If I should tell you something, will you believe in the last 2 weeks we had a meeting, and this is some area, one area that I think we need to, I think it's across Africa. I know in Congo, why are we having crisis? Most of the crises we're having in most of this Africa are not as a result of anything more than resources. Somebody told me in Mina, the Mina that you know, Dr. Remy, inside the market of Mina, they are selling gold worth $1 billion naira. Billion. Bah. So then why? And then do you know where they are money? These miners are all informal. They are just doing, and that is why we have this crisis. So based on what we do, we now pick some markets within the area. We have Mina, we have Beji, we have Uganda, we have Mariga. We want to see the level of influence of this market. Believe me, we saw scenarios. For instance, Mariga, which is about 170 kilometers from Mina. Could you believe people as far as Lagos on a market day? If you know the flow of resources, when we talk of money, you'll be surprised. So how do we harness this kind of resources that people from the rural area, you know, real villages will come to that market, they will keep it at a very takeaway price. There is no control and so on and so on. So these are some of the things that we look at, and then we raise the awareness. We're able to map what they have and to show the sphere of influence, for example, from Mariga up to Abuja, from Mina up to other areas, and then to see what can we improve. Because their life, they develop, they farm this produce, but they don't value, they don't benefit from it. And that is one of the key reasons why we have some of this budgetary attack. But there are other areas to improve these rural areas. One of two, which I will mention. You are aware when you came, we talk about the Nigerian Early Support Program. There are some of these rural areas, what they need is very minimal, and then you can turn around their life, and they will never go to the city, because when they go, they don't even have anything. Electricity is one, and by the intervention of the European Union and GIZ, they started this program, what they call the Nigerian Energy Support Program, where they identify. And one interesting thing, Dr. Remy, the selection process up to now, one of the areas that we went, there was no way you will have getting electricity for the next 20 years. But they had this opportunity. I think GIS spent almost 100 something million to provide that, and then now it's not free. And that is why we need to calibrate our processes of implementing urban policies, especially at the city that we're doing them. The same villagers that we think they don't know what they are doing, they are managing, buying their prepaid card and paying for this service, and nobody is complaining, and this is working. And I think it's important thing we look at it. How do we move forward? And then we also have, and what is the effect of that? Of course, just because of electricity, the value of land has increased, and then people are not moving. And then there is this rural access and mobility program by World Bank. This is something very, you can look at it, what the rural person is looking for, just a bridge to connect one community to another is more important to him than anything. Lack of this culvert of bridges. I went to a village about a year ago. They called me, doctor. They thought I was a medical doctor. After about a week, somebody called me the snake, but because you have to enter water, a stream. And then somebody called me, we lived there about 3 days. Doctor, a snake. There's somebody inside the water that they don't have any way. And if you know the kind of produce, rice, so this is something that I believe by providing access. Then we also did this on slumming, which you are aware of, very small project which we have started, and the government has taken it up, and which we are extending back home. This also is one area. So if we can look at some of these low-hanging fruit to improve the life of not only the city dwellers, but also the rural people, it will go a long way in improving some of these. And then, but there are some challenges which we have faced, and we are facing. And most recent one, of course, we are aware, this banditry attack and kidnapping. If you are coming to Nigeria now, one of the key things they will tell you is don't move. If you are in Abuja or Lagos, don't move far away from the area. And this is affecting not only plan implementation, and then so many other things. But what are the consequences of this? people are really moving away. And that is why we need to look at that. And we have seen the result. We have seen the figure. One thing that is happening, people are farming, but they cannot harvest. And they will go and burn this thing. So until we have peace and security, this will keep affecting not only the intermediary city, but even rural area. And this is an issue that we know we must look at the crops, the really main, should I say, motivating factor that is leading this kind of crisis. Then we have identified something for the purpose of maybe some of the key gaps that I think we need to take note of. How do we move forward if we are to improve not only the intermediate cities, but also these rural areas? You can manage what you can manage. For instance, we have looked at this issue of data. Accurate data on the development challenge of each of these local government is lacking. We have to find local government. We need to look at how do we move doing that, no matter how little. And I will appreciate the support, the encouragement and direction by you and